Hi, everyone. We're here this afternoon to have another show and tell of the NEBA Book Artists Group. And we've got three amazing artists, which is then the way it's going. These meetings have been tremendous and wonderful. And I think they're so successful, I can't even see them stopping even when we start having in-person meetings. But our three wonderful artists, member artists today are Penny Hall, Marcia Vogler, and Sara David Ringler. And so I would like to introduce Penny and have her begin. I've seen her work at the Boston Athenaeum book, a book fair. It wasn't a fair, but it was some kind of a show of special books.
Yeah, it's the New England chapter of the Guild of Bookworkers had a show.
And that's right. So Penny is a member of that group as well. And her piece was the star of the show. I mean, and heads above everybody else. So Penny, please show us your work and tell us a little bit about that group too and what they give to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your kind words about my work. My name is Penny Hall. I live in Kingfield, Maine. If anyone knows where Sugarloaf ski area is, I'm very near there. Have been here for about 20 years. And I make artist books and I do some clay sculpture at this point. I started with artist books back in the 90s. Actually, I started with artist books when I was a kid, which I think is something I probably have in common with many of the people in this group. But in the 90s, I got interested again. And I started taking some courses at North Bennett Street School and learned a lot about traditional book structure, which is very helpful. And since then, I've taken some classes at Maine College of Art in Portland and University of Southern Maine in Portland. I think Rebecca's here and she ran a wonderful program there. So I'd like to show you a little bit. I picked three works to show you, and I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the structural considerations that I use. So I'm going to try this screen share thing. Let's see what happens. Okay, let me just get this set up quickly. All right, there we go. All right, I hope everyone can see this.
Yes.
Okay, this is the first book I wanted to talk about. The title is Cranes and Iris, and I made this book in 2015. It's actually a flag book. It's 11 inches high, and one of the things that I loved about this book, and actually kind of inspired me to make it, was this beautiful Katie McGregor handmade paper. That's what that lovely blue is, and I absolutely love her paper. It also, the flags, which are not traditional flags, are Stonehenge paper, and they're all painted with watercolor and hand cut.
Oh, Penny.
And what I do with particularly with flag books, but in these sculptural books like this, I actually paint both sides of the images, because you never know when it's going to flip open or someone's going to see the backside. So, but this gives you a little bit better idea of the actual flag structure. You can see on the bottom the kind of stones and moss are flags in one direction, and then just above it are the the marshy elements are flags in the other direction. And then I think there are four of the cranes, the Japanese cranes, that are actually applied as flags on the upper part of the book. And I love making this book. But one of the things I discovered is that, and I know this happens to all of us, if you look at the spine of this book, at the tail, it's quite thick and very thin at the top. This is the tail of the book. This is the head. And while in this book I wouldn't change it, it was a consideration. It's something I had to deal with, because I also like to make a box for the books, the nicer books that I make. And I like the book to present nicely in the box. So in order for this book to kind of present like this, even with all the sides of the box, I needed to put a little layer in there. So if you look in this kind of the top left, that part of the box is about 7/8 of an inch deep, whereas in this lower right hand corner, that's about 1/8 of an inch. So I just had to put a panel in there so that the book would present nicely in the box. Not a huge deal, as I said.
Very
You
nice job
shimmed your
handling that.
box.
Yeah.
You shimmed it.
Thank you. Yeah, I shimmed it, exactly. And for this book, I wouldn't have changed the way I made the book because the materials that I wanted to use and the way I wanted to make the book was really necessary for the book to be shaped like that. But it also made me think about when I make books, sometimes I really want to think about having a book more symmetric, you know, foredge and spine, kind of the same thickness, head and tail the same thickness. So the next book I wanted to show you is Channel of Crevices. And this book is I made in 2018. This book was made, I lived in Okinawa back in the 70s for a couple of years. And I did some scuba diving there. I did quite a bit. And I just loved being underwater. I loved all the critters. And I wanted to make a book that really kind of showed that, kind of gave you the feel of being underwater. And I also wanted a book that was going to kind of be somewhat symmetrical when I made it. This is actually the back side of the book. This is a book that you can view from all sides. So when I made the book, and this picture doesn't exactly show it, but the foredge and the spine, if you want to call them that, are pretty symmetric. And there are two accommodations I made when I made this book. As you can see, and this is an accordion book, by the way. So rather than have just mountain fold, valley fold, mountain fold, valley fold, as you see on the left, I decided to make a little spine, a 1/4 inch on each fold. And that really made a difference in terms of, because I really packed the inside of these accordions with material. This is just a little display of, you can kind of see in the back, there's a 1/4 inch that shows, but I could really pack in there and do almost a tunnel book kind of thing with it, and still have room for the book to close and not really stress the materials. And the other accommodation I made was, I decided that I wanted some depth. I wanted to be able to look inside the reef. So I decided, as the sections of this accordion went together, I would kind of expand it. I'd use some spacers and make some layers. So this is exaggerated, but this gives you the idea of the first part of the accordion with the fold, and the 1/4 inch spine is in there, and then some spacers and a central portion. And then the next fold of the accordion would attach the way it's shown here. And you can just keep going with that. So that's really the basic structure that I used with this particular book. And this is putting it together. The paper I used for this was pretty much Stonehenge, Fabriano Artistico, used some Artist-Tex wove. And I tore edges of the paper because I really wanted to give it that kind of rough coral look. And I will tell you, one of the things I found out when I did this was that because when the torn parts of the paper are not sized, they are hard to paint. You can kind of see here that one of those edges is just white. It took a lot of layers of paint to color those edges. That was pretty amazing. Yeah. But here's kind of the idea of the layers of the book. You can kind of see that there's a lot of layers there. And you can look all the way through. And as I said, the book you can see from both the front or the back. That's a little close-up of that area we just saw. And
So
there's
your spacers aren't visible from any of these views.
They're not. The little spacers I use, what I showed you in the demo of how I did it was really exaggerated, and I just used some I don't know, some styrofoam for that. But for this, I used a lot of laminated paper, and I colored it and tucked it away in different places, so in different shapes. So they really, you can look at those spacers, and unless you're looking for it, you don't really recognize that they're there. They blend right in with it.
Very nice.
And there's a view of the front of the book.
Extraordinary.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Then the next book, this brings me to this next book. And the next book is Cabin Fever. And this is where I live. This is winter. This is a particularly interesting winter, but yes, I live here. And so that was really the inspiration for this book. And it took me 3 winters. I worked on it in the winter, and I took 3 winters to do it. And but here's the book. And if you'll notice in this particular slide, if you look at the chimney and you look at the roof line and you look at kind of the bottom part of the snow, this again, the foredge and the spine, the head and the tail are all pretty close to being the same thickness. And that was really a goal, again, with this particular book. So remember the little fold, I used that again. And here's the beginning of the book. And you can kind of see how and this is a carousel book, by the way. You can kind of see how this structure formed.
So were you drum binding each of those sections together? Is that how you're getting your carousel?
They are drummed together, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And you can kind of see here where the light shines through, there's 2 layers, each page is 2 layers, yep. And that worked out well. And this again is a very thick book. It ends up being 4 rooms. And this you can't really see, I painted it dark here, but that 1/4 inch spine for this particular room is right there where the dark is painted, the gray is painted. And started filling it. And as you can see, as I said, it's a thick book. The doors, the baseboards, those are all of veneer, as is the outside. I think I can't remember exactly which veneer. And what I used for the paneling was some papyrus, which I love the color and the texture, so that worked very well for that. And
what are the window frames made out of? Like the cross frames?
the cross frames are, for those, are paper. Yeah.
Mhm.
When you say veneer, what does that mean?
Well, a veneer is a very thin slice of wood. And I'll grab some. Yeah, I'll grab some.
I wondered
after I
if
get
you
done.
meant wood, or if you meant you were veneering the paper.
Yeah, no, it's actually wood.
Wood.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So anyway, that's.
So you have an elephant in your cabin.
Just wait.
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot in this cabin.
Yeah, there's a lot more than an elephant in there.
There's a lot in this cabin. The theme of this cabin is cabin fever, as I said. And the story really is that a person is locked away, stuck away in this cabin in the woods in the winter. And in their dreams, the cabin is invaded with tropical critters. So this is kind of the outside of the book. And what I did was, again, the snow is I used a couple of different things. It's kind of a paper mache material for the most part. So it adds some thickness, and it also helped me, it really helped me adjust the thicknesses particularly at the foredge part of it. And this is the first room. This is the kitchen. And this is the koalas having tea, and they're being served by the penguins, and the monkeys looking on. And
that's a lot of critters. in
There's a
one
lot
room.
of critters. And this is our living room. And again, I had said I paint both sides of these structures. And what you can see over here on the left, the doors go through to each room, and the flamingo that you kind of see poking over the top of the zebra actually is in the next room. It's not in this room.
And one of those kangaroos too, right? You can see a
Yeah.
kangaroo in the first view from behind, and now you're
Yes.
seeing it from the front. Yeah, great.
Exactly.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. And here's the bathroom. The elephant is giving a shower to the seal in the bathtub. And then this is the bedroom, and you see our poor cabin resident sound asleep with cabin fever and the ice bag on her head to cool her down, as she's surrounded again by the critters, probably singing her a lullaby. I don't know. This book actually is not in my possession right now. I was lucky enough to have it accepted to the Guild of Bookworkers triennial show, and it right now is in Atlanta. And their triennial show will be hopefully in Boston at the North Bennett Street School in January.
Oh,
With
great.
COVID, everything's always up in the air, but there will
Let
be.
us keep us updated so that we can let everybody know about it.
Right, I absolutely will. Yeah.
Great.
So anyway, that's unless somebody needs to see some more slides, I'll stop the screen share. Done.
Oh, Penny, these are extraordinary.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh,
I love doing it. I love doing the detail. I love just taking my time and, that kind of thing. So it's my thing.
they are lush. I don't, you
The
really,
birdcage at the
them.
Boston Athenaeum was like that too. It was just so much detail and dimension and things going on that it's really just not the same as seeing it in person. But we did get a good feel for it with the photos you took. I mentioned in the chat that when I have an irregular flag that I need to kind of level out, I work from the back side of the flag to give density build up. And I usually use the exact same paper that the accordion is.
Yep.
And I just kind of shim it from the back sides instead of, And that way it doesn't interfere with your imagery.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a great idea. And I'm sure other people have some ways that they also even a book up. I'm happy to hear about them.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the flag book. Yeah, I do a lot of flags. I love them. Yeah, very nice work. Thank you for that.
What I remember about your carousel book in the Boston Athenaeum show there was how you made it look metallic. It was a bird cage, and the structure actually looked metallic. So you have a vast knowledge of how to work your material.
That material, by the way, that was embossing powder. Remember scrapbooking? I mean, I loved scrapbooking, and it got big, and people were using that embossing powder. And that's what that was.
I thought I was guessing
take a
when
heat
I was
gun
there.
and melt
I
it
guessed that, but I wasn't sure. At some point, I'm going to make a post with images from the, we went on a field trip there and took pictures, and I am like way behind in my posts. But one of these points that will be up and everybody can enjoy it. Do you have a little more in-person stuff to share?
Not exactly.
Okay.
If somebody has a question, but no, I think I'm pretty much done. The book that you saw at the Boston Athenaeum, I would love to show you, but I don't have it right now. It's on its way home. So at some point in the future, perhaps I can talk. That had some interesting structural issues in it too. So I'm happy to talk about that at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you. Sarah, you have a question.
Thank you.
I have a question, Penny, or maybe a couple of questions. Do you paint an entire scene and then cut it up? No. Paint individual. And what are you using for materials?
What I use for things that need to stand up, I like Stonehenge paper. It's a printmaker paper is fairly heavy, a similar weight as a 140-pound watercolor paper, which I also use.
And
For things that I'm going to,
watercolor or
mostly,
gouache?
mostly watercolor and gouache, occasionally acrylic, if I need to do something special with that. Yep.
But
Yep.
everything is crafted individually?
Individually hand cut. If I did editions of these things, I would have to get a cutting machine. But since they're all one of a kind, you know, I cut and fit it in, and yeah, so.
I'm just gonna do that and then.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you so much. Really extraordinary. So
I just want to add one more thing to the chat. She
Sure.
mentioned, I believe it was Katie McGregor Papers. Is that the correct name? Katie McGregor?
That Katie McGregor is the correct name. She is in Whiting, Maine. And I will try, I don't have her contact information right now. I will find it. I don't believe she has a website. You can email her, but she does not have a website. But I can give that contact information for people for the next newsletter, for example.
Oh, that would be great. I just added it to
Yeah.
the chat so that we'll
Yeah,
have a record of it. Because that's,
Yeah,
I always
yeah.
like to check out interesting paper people.
Yeah,
that was
wonderful
a good
paper.
catch. That was a good catch, Christina. So my question is, who is Katie McGregor? Where does she live and how did you know about her paper?
Katie McGregor lives in Whiting, Maine, and I know about her paper really through the New England Guild of Bookworkers and the Guild of Bookworkers.
Okay.
She's been at, you know, sold papers there and other places. And Rebecca also knows her. She's been at the at University of Southern Maine for their book fair as well. So.
Well,
Great.
it sounds like we need to know about her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's great to share these resource ideas. Fantastic work, Penny. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Penny. So let's move on to Marcia Vogler. Marcia makes the most incredible structures. When you look at them, you go, book? How's that a book? But in fact, they're just amazing. So Marcia, tell us about your books and show us some of them.
Okay, well, I will share my screen. Checked with other book arts guilds around the country, and I just thought, oh, I have to do that. It seemed like so much fun. So this was my postcard in the book, and I live in Vermont, and I love Vermont. We've been here for 30 some years. And it's a beautiful place with mountains and farms, and I love to hike and swim and kayak. So that's kind of who I am. And I live on a farm, and we grow vegetables, and we used to make pizza, but that's over. And I have cows next door and across the street. So it used to be more rural than it is now. But anyway, we love it here. I've been making books since about 2005, maybe around there. And I came to it through my friend Penny, who is here, and she invited me to come to a meeting of the Book Arts Guild of Vermont, which I knew nothing about, but I've always been interested in paper and sewing. Those are my two loves. So once I found this community, I was totally hooked. My background, I went to design school for apparel design in New York City, and I lived there for 15 years. And when I came to Vermont, I started working as a sports bra designer for the old jog bra. And now it was jog bra, then it's Champion jog bra, now just Champion. But anyway, that's my kind of professional life. So it's kind of art related, but you know, sewing has always been one of my true loves. So I'll just share some of the books, and I don't know how much time it might take. So if I'm going too slow, then, or if there's too many, you can just stop me. So my first book to share is Measuring Up, and I chose this because it is so much a part of who I am. And so can see the cover is a muslin cover with stitching and pinking. And the binding is a woven binding from Claire Van Vliet's book, Woven and Interlocking Structures. And it's twill tape that is printed like a measuring tape, which I usually have around my neck most days. And it's woven through buttonholes. And you can see on this side, it's woven through the pages. So it's a single sheet binding, and they're all interwoven. So the pages are some other kind of paper, which I'm really not quite sure what it is, but I think it's some kind of cotton paper. And I like to combine different kinds of materials. So in this case, I've combined a lot of sewing and with woven fabric, and then collage. So in most of my work, I do a lot of collage and drawing by hand and lettering by hand. So you can kind of see that, and I'll show you some more of the pages. So this is the first spread. Is I like to measure things. I measure ingredients for baking, miles I've hiked, and time spent working. And then on the right-hand side, the page shows kind of what I do as a bra designer. I do a lot of fittings and alterations. And so I'm fascinated by the way measurements work together with materials to make the difference between a good bra and a bad bra. And so it's all collage, handwritten.
You're saying these colors are fabrics, not paper.
No, this is all paper. I'm sorry, the cover was fabric. These are all, yeah, these are all paper that either, found papers, or I do a lot of jelly prints.
All right, there we go. Thank you.
And then drawing on top of it. And so this is my life. I spend torturous hours in the fitting room, unable to find myself a comfortable everyday bra, even though that's what I'm supposed to be doing every day. And so one page that was missing is how people pay me a lot of money and consider me an expert in this, in the bra fitting world. So, which I think is really funny, but it makes me feel like a fake because I can't find a good bra. And then the last spread is tips for measuring up. So it's just kind of, they're funny tips, like a heaping cup refers to baking measurement, not the fit of the bra cup. And a pinch is a baking measurement that should be avoided in bra fittings. And so anyway, once you've reached expert status, which some people consider that I am, you have measured up. So I've measured up. So it's, yeah. That's my book. So it's really a part of me.
Charming.
What's in the back tab?
Oh, that's the colophon, and it just explains all the stuff. So I like to make pockets for my colophon. So a lot of my books have pockets in the back and a little tab to put the colophon in.
Oh,
Nice.
The next book is called Pet Stories, and a lot of my books are memories or personal experiences. So this is a book about my cats. And the cover on the left is wool felt, and it's attached to the interior, which is an accordion book, actually kind of a flag book. The pages are mounted on the accordion. And so it looks like a cat. I am just embroidered a little nose and mouth on there.
I love the subtlety of that. That's really well done. Yeah.
Thank you. And on the right are some of the pages. And again, they're painted backgrounds with collage on top and handwriting. So, and I have a little video. It's not too long, so we can watch it and how it opens. There's no audio. So it's just the pet stories. And I tried to read it, but I can't read it fast enough. But this is our first cat, then a pair of cats, a girl and a boy cat. Boy cat died on the street. He was restless. And then girl cat was just mean her whole life.
Oh,
And the little girl is still with us, but she meows all the time because she's deaf.
oh, wow.
So that's that. Oh,
Adorable.
yes.
Oh,
My
I was gonna
next.
say you're going too fast.
Oh, I want to get it all in, but I can slow down if you want me to. I like the cat book. The next book is called Family Ties. And this, it was interesting when I was putting together my books, how many of my books are very personal memories and a lot about my family. So it was a good exercise to try to put together books in kind of categories. So this is my family memory portion of the presentation. So this book is, it's in a little tie box that I made out of like a corrugated card. And it has a little tray that the book goes in. The book is the striped portion, and it's a silk tie cover that is attached to boards with a padding in between. So it looks, it's very tactile. And this is the interior of the book. So how I came to this book, I was looking through family photos, and the photos here and here on the outside of the book, they're photos of a family picnic at my grandmother's house. And I thought, why is everyone so dressed up? Why are they all wearing ties? It's kind of crazy. And then I found this other photo, which is the flag book in the middle. And it turned out it was the same day that they had a professional family photo made. So that's what the interior is. So the reason for the, let me see where I am here. The reason for the family photo was it's called the 4-generation party. And it was September 7th, 1946. And it's 4 generations of both my mother's family and my father's family. So it was really a special occasion, and they all lived very close, and they're all here. So it's pretty amazing. This is my father here, and my mother, and one of my grandmothers and her mother, my grandfather and his father. So it just goes on and on. It's like the whole family. So it's
Where
pretty
are
cute.
you? Are you in this picture?
1946. No, I was
gonna
not
say you're
in this
not in this
picture.
picture. Yeah. I
No,
was gonna
this
say,
is my
there's no
sister
way.
here. My sister's here,
Okay.
and she's a lot older than me. She was like 1 there, and that's my mother.
The hand coloring really makes a huge difference in this
It's
piece.
wonderful.
Yeah, thanks. All the ties are collaged. And the funny thing was that not only the men had ties on, but all the women had bows on their shirts and dresses and bows in everyone's hair. It was kind of crazy. So it worked out really well. I really loved it. And, I had seen Karen Hamner's books that she uses a lot of these photographs and makes these beautiful flag structures that have a lot of movement, and they show everything so nicely. And so that's what I was trying to do. And then of course, after I had finished the book, I looked her up, and she had written this article about how exactly to do it, which of course I didn't follow the directions because I didn't look at it until afterwards. But if you're going to attempt it, I recommend reading her instructions or her tips on how to make that kind of book.
And their name is Karen Hamner.
Karen Hamner.
Thank you.
So
that's an extraordinary book.
Yeah.
Your books tell such great stories.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, they're beautiful, but there's stories in them too, and I love that.
Yeah. Love
Thank
the
you.
use of the tie on as the cover too.
Yeah.
That was very clever, and your boxing is clever as well. Yeah, nicely
Thank
done.
you. I made several of them, but I had to use different ties, you know, so I had to go
Yeah.
to the Goodwill and see if I could find a real silk tie, which I did for like $2.
Of
So it
course.
worked out
There
good
you
for
go.
me.
Yeah. Nice.
The next book is called Leaving Orange. It's also a family memory. And the photo that is in the little tiny photo on the cover is actually my grandmother's house where that last book took place.
Which was where?
It's in Orange, Mass.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So some of you
Now
may know
Leaving
that.
Orange.
And I
Yeah.
grew up in Springfield, and my grandmother and my parents grew up in Orange and Athol. And that's where
Huh.
they, you know, my grandmother lived there. All my relatives lived there forever. So anyway, this is her house. And this one is Leaving Orange. When I was a child, we went to my grandmother's house every single weekend of my entire life. And so when we would leave, we would go on Friday night and come back on Sunday afternoon, just when the sun was setting. So this is a memory of that time, because when we left, it's on the top of a hill, and we would drive down the hill and across the front, the roadway in front, and we would blink our lights on and off, and my grandmother would blink the lights on the porch on and off. And it was just such a, you know, just something we did every single weekend. So this is kind of a tunnel book, modified tunnel book that's sewn, the pages are sewn to the accordion spine. It's collage, and it's a lot of watercolor paper and, I don't know, colored pencil and collage and drawing. But it's very special to me because the house was very special. So this one I made, I don't know how many I made, 4 or 5. And I gave one to each of my siblings and my niece, who had a special feeling for the house as well. And now we've sold it. And so for all of us, it was kind of a sad thing, but I'm happy to have this book as a remembrance of it.
Wow. Incredible.
I also have quite a thing for birds, as my friends know. So I have a lot of bird books, and this is one. This is called Invasion, and it's about starlings and murmurations. I have a lot of murmuration books, but this is, I think, one of my most successful ones. So the cover, it's a hard cover in the front and the back. And I hand drew the starling, and it's got collage feet and beak on it. And, you know, I did a lot of research about starlings and how invasive they can be and how mean they are, but they are so beautiful. So
Wow.
this is the book open. So I hand drew all the bird shapes and scanned them into the computer, and then just manipulated over and over again until I got this, what I thought was the perfect murmuration.
And murmuration, what is, from those of us who aren't really up on this, what does that mean in the book arts world?
Murmuration doesn't mean anything in the book arts world.
Oh,
It
Right.
means, you know, it's the birds, the flocks of birds that fly incredibly closely to each other, but never hit each other,
got it.
and just make these incredible, I don't know,
Textures in the
incredible
sky.
visions
Shapes.
in the sky.
Yeah.
So, you can see that there's an accordion with the birds printed on it from the computer, And then there's printed acetate flags. And it's a flag structure again, but it's kind of modified. And the flags come from the front, but they go to the back as well, as you can see right here. So this is one continuous piece. So I slotted them through the folds of the accordion and then attach them in the back. So it gives a nice sense of what the back is too. It's kind of a little murmuration in itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely adding a lot to the backside. That's the problem with most people's flag books, is the backside is not as interesting.
Right. Yeah. So I really like the back. I was very pleased how that came out. And so it can be, manipulated. It can be shown different ways. I like it.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
yeah. Fantastic.
amazing.
Yeah.
Bravo.
This is another bird book that I just wanted to expand on the last one a little bit. And so this is the cover. It's elephant hide paper that's been printed with the hand-drawn trees. And so in this one, I wrote a little poem, and unlike most of my books, which I write by hand, I felt this was needed to be a little more together. So I printed it on the computer. And, I did a lot of the same manipulations with the birds on this. And so it's a fishbone structure, which is a hedichile structure. And then you can see here, I have made cuts in the mountain fold and push them in, and that's where I attach the flags. So it's the same kind of the printed acetate flags that stick out from it.
And you said it's a hedichile structure.
Yeah, fishbone.
Yep, the fishbone. So, and then my last, oops, did not mean to do that. My last kind of theme in my work is altered books, which I really love to do because there's a lot of sewing involved for me. So, and I just love to sew, and I love the repetition of doing the same thing over and over. So this one is called Time Travels. And the pages are from a paperback book that I found that was about time travel. It was all short stories about time travel. And so as I read it, I thought, oh, I just love this idea of time travel. And so I decided to cut them up and make a book out of them. So it's quite long. I'd say, I don't know, maybe 2.5, 3 feet long. And the pages are attached to this accordion spine here. And so they're sewn with a pamphlet stitch onto the accordion spine, and then I cut them. So the folios are like, I don't know, 4 inches wide, and then I cut them into 1/2-inch strips. And so after I sewed them onto the accordion, then I sewed the accordion onto the solid spine, which is this double-sided unryu paper. I can't remember how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I think it's unryu. Yeah.
Yeah, unryu.
It's really strong. So it can take being sewn like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I sewed it to that with, again, a pamphlet stitch, and it really looks like a spine. But I thought it needed something more. So I made these cutouts in the solid spine, and I folded them out so you can see them around here.
It's kind of spiky crown, although like inside a whale's mouth and the teeth, it does all kinds of things.
It does. It can be displayed many ways. I've only included this one, but it can even be worn. One of my friends wore it. So
Does it collapse down any smaller, or is it housed in a box structure, or how do you handle it as far as keeping it archival and safe and all that? I'm just out of
I just have
curiosity.
it-
'Cause-
yeah, I'm not sure about that, but I have it in a box, with
Yeah.
padding around it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It just seems like it's delicate, even though it probably is not as delicate as it really seems, but who knows?
Yeah, no, it's not really too delicate, actually. But I mean, it's been messed around with. I've hung it on my refrigerator because it has a magnetic closure. So I've hung it on my refrigerator and messed around with it, and on my metal bookcase. It's really fun to play with. So
Excellent.
So
And
with the metal, what do you just kind of spiral it and then it just, is that how you do it?
yeah, it's
Wait.
got a life of its own, really.
Okay.
It can, yeah, it twists and turns. It's amazing. Well, I might pull it out while the next person is talking, and show
And
it to you later.
I have one more question. Did you, to curl the pieces, just wrap it around a pencil or something? And
No, I use the old ribbon technique.
really,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
And it
so I
didn't
used my
rip?
scissors.
and it did that.
Yeah,
I've
It's
never tried
gorgeous.
that on anything other than curly ribbon. Wow, that's an interesting note. I need to write that one down.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
My last slide is the time traveler's coat. So this, I was thinking I'd make a series of all time traveler things. So my next thing could be a boot, but I'm not sure if I'll get to that. But anyway, so the time traveler's coat is made from the same book. And I had a lot of pages that I had torn up. And so I used the technique, I think it's called paper fabric or fabric paper. So I took squares of cotton fabric, like a cotton sheeting, and made them, soaked them with like a Mod Podge kind of a diluted Mod Podge solution, and then soaked them and then applied the papers on top. So I made them into kind of a log cabin design. And I dipped the edges of the paper in walnut ink, just so you would get some kind of distinction between the edges. So I made all each square that you see, those were all made separately, and then I put them together, and I added the triangle shapes on the edge. And you can see in the detail on the right, the stitching. So after I had the squares made, then I did a circular stitching to give it like the sense that you are going through the time machine and going backwards or forwards somewhere in time.
Wow.
It definitely optically feels like you're falling into a hole visually, especially on the detail when you see it up close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you see the round over the square, it's
Yeah.
a real neat. It's really jarring to the eye, but it really pulls you in.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it's a traditional kimono style.
Yeah.
And it's really life size. I don't know if you can get the sense of how big it is, but it is, I don't know, 4 feet by 3 feet, something like that. So and people want to put it on, but it's really stiff. So it's impossible to put on. Although I have tried it with my arms out. So,
What's the lining?
the lining is just the cotton fabric. And then in the back, I put like a like if you were making a coat, you would put a facing in the back. I put a paper facing in the back and then attach the cuffs and the bottom and the band around the neck, just like you would if you were making a kimono. But they are that double-sided unryu paper.
Yeah. Fantastic. So the red, the little bit of red that we're seeing at the neck there, is that the lining on the inside?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
And you really can't see it, but I did punch holes in the cuff, the black cuff and the bottom and the whole band. I punched holes so that you can see the other side. You can see the red through it, but it doesn't show up in the photo. So there's some other red element in it.
Very nicely done. I think you're really working with your supplies and materials in an unusual way here. That's really nice.
Thank you.
And it's also self expressive.
Yeah.
Really, really beautiful stuff from start to finish.
Yeah, nice.
Oh,
Thank you.
well, thank you, Marcia. It's really neat to learn about your craft and what you've made. They're really beautiful creations.
Thank you.
Oh, keep on keeping on.
Oh, I'm sorry I took up so much time.
Oh, we were enthralled.
No, we're riveted. Are you kidding?
So
We
I'm
go
going to
on and
add
on.
to the chat to a few things. Elephant hide paper. Interesting stuff. And Heidi Kyle's fishbone. What is it called? The fishbone bind by,
Heidi.
is it Hetty or Heidi? How do we say it? Heidi?
I think
I
it's
don't know
Hetty,
the name.
Hedi.
Yeah, I misspelled that.
Okay.
And
I
then
thought it
the
was like Hetty
fantastic
Lamar.
notion of using scissors on paper, parentheses, not just curly ribbon.
Wonderful. So again, thank you. Thank you for that share. Really terrific. Our next, and not the last but not least presenter today is Sara David Ringler, whose work is well known all over the place. Even I know her, and I'm just new to all this myself. I know Sarah's work from the Monotype Guild, and she's an amazing printmaker and really knows how to show her stuff. So let's see what kind of book she's been making with her monotypes and every other beautiful thing that she makes.
Thank you. Thank you, Carolyn. Nice to see you. Should I pin myself here? You can hear me.
We can hear you. I gave you the host and I put you in
Okay.
speaker view for the recording. So you're good.
Okay. All right. And as I ask my students, can you see me and can you hear me? Yes.
We can see you and hear
Thank you. Okay, so I am Sara Ringler, and I'm a full-time professor at Cape Cod Community College. I've been doing a lot of different things with my art over the years, and I used to teach a course in book arts and paper making at Cape Cod Community College. I guess I primarily consider myself a printmaker, and so I got into the idea of making books by studying handmade paper with Sandy Burnett on Martha's Vineyard, and that was my introduction to making books. And what we would do, we would make handmade paper and we would make books in the wet pulp stage, and all the stitching and all the attachments were done completely when we were pulling our sheets of paper. So that was a long, long time ago. It made me very excited about combining different materials and different processes. But what I'd like to show you today, and I had sort of a funny experience this morning because I put my cyanotypes out in my outdoor area, and then I did not realize it was starting to rain. But however, the new thing that I discovered this summer is wet cyanotypes. So I don't know how many of you do cyanotype printmaking. So you'll be familiar with this, and maybe there's a little bit of a new twist to it. But before I talk to you about that, I thought I would share with you a project which I participated in several years ago with the Boston Strasbourg Sister City Association. And we created, there were, I think, 13 artists in New England and 13 artists in Strasbourg, France. And we created a show of work based on a common theme. And everybody took the theme into a different direction. So it might be a challenge someday that this group might want to take on in perhaps a smaller way, I'm not sure. So this is the catalog for the show. And the theme was based on a journal of a Frenchman who comes to America to help fight for the colonists. So it was, the theme really was about this man's journal and his copious notes that he took in the little houses that he visited when he was coming in the 1700s to the colonies. So I had an interesting time trying to decide how I was going to take the theme, because I really didn't want to do something historic. However, people did very historic takes on their interpretation. But the idea was that you could take the theme, and as those kinds of things go, you could be very abstract, or you could be very specific to the topic and historical. So I went on a different tack. And what I did was I decided, if I'm going to spend all this time, I'm going to create my personal journal based on my personal travels. And then I would make a book that was to be shared. So there were other attributes to this that you had to fulfill, because you had to create a map. So let me see if I can, I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but I am going to tip the computer, if I can do that, towards a table so you can see how big this is. So basically it's an accordion book. I'm trying to untie it as I'm talking to you. And it's tied, well, it's supposed to make you think about sailing. It's tied with a piece of cotton, and it has a chart here of the oceans. So this is 2016, and it's called Wanderlust. So for those of you who do a lot of travel journals, you may have in your possession a lot of journals, unfinished journals. So you go somewhere and you write the first 5 pages of a journal, and then you put it away, and then you take another journal and you go on another trip, and then there's another journal that has 5 pages. So that was my desire, to like bring everything together of my whole life into this book. So I'm going to tip this down, and I really didn't have a big enough table to put it. So it's going to just be over here. And just tell me if you can somewhat see this. So,
Yeah, we can see that.
okay, let me see if I'm opening this. Okay, so this is the book, and I'm gonna pull out the map. So let me stand this up. Most of this content, well, it's all about me, right? So that's what.
Oh, no.
No,
Ouch.
no, I don't want to do that. Okay, so let's try this again. All right, so I should have opened this ahead of time. I apologize. All right, let's see.
We
if
got a good sense of the slinkiness of it.
Oh,
That
yeah,
way.
it's a slinky. Okay. All right. All right. The human element of things here. So, all right, you're looking at the book and it's Wanderlust, and that's the end of it. That's where the end is where it begins, which is my family, and that's me. And these are all hand-colored Citrusol transfers. So I'm going to just hold this up. This is the process. Not sure how many of you know. It's a really great way to make content. So these are photographs that are then transferred with Citrusol.
So you're making Xeroxes of original photographs, and then
Right, and then
yeah.
using this and a press to
Uh-huh.
hand transfer them to whatever paper you're going to use. And this is all basically Reeves BFK paper, but it could be any kind of paper. And so these were all hand colored photographs. And then I took the text from various journals that I had created over the years and wrote on the reverse side, sometimes on this side, about the places that I've lived and my journey and where I've traveled and living on Cape Cod and going out to the national seashore, to the dune shacks, places that are important to me over the years, travels to the Galapagos Islands, and making handmade paper when I was on sabbatical living in Japan. So I included some of the handmade paper. On the back side of it is the story about making this handmade paper out of kozu, and then try not to lose what I'm doing here. Then actually making paper, photographs of making paper, and then I collaged a piece of the handmade paper in there. So going to various places in Thailand. And the whole idea of the book, in my mind, was to make my personal journey. And then this book was able to travel to the group show that we had in Strasbourg, France, which was really a fantastic opportunity, living in Florence and so on and so forth. And then, as I said, the backside of this book has a little bit more content in terms of text.
Wow.
And maps and charts of places that I've sailed and places that I've been to, places that I've sailed, places I've lived. So maps, charts, and text and drawings of various trips. So,
Oh my gosh, what an undertaking.
it's quite large.
It's a serious labor of love. That's an awful lot of transferring.
And then as far as display, it could be displayed that way or on a long. I had the privilege of displaying this several times and having it stretched out. And then the paste papers that I did when I was living in Florence. So that is that part of it. And then the other part is we had to create a map. And so the map folds out, and it is the connection of all of not just the places, but the I hand colored in the flow of water and the a chart that I found of how we are connected through the oceans, through all the tides and moving the moving bodies of water that connect us to all the places in the world, really.
That's a gorgeous map.
They've got
So
really great colors and it just feels really nice. Yeah.
okay, so that's part of who I am and what I do. But let me tell you a little bit about what I've been doing lately. So most of you had things to show that are more about structure, and I'm going to just talk about process. So that was based on the idea of using the process of citrusol transfer. You could do it by hand, but I use a press to do it. And then this is about wet cyanotype. So for years, I have been doing this process, which is traditional cyanotype. And with traditional cyanotype, you would apply the cyanotype materials to your paper. And can I do a screen share now?
I have you set up so you can do it whenever you feel like it.
All right, so you should be looking at, this is a Padlet. And on here would be the two chemicals that, if you're not familiar with this, many of you probably already know this, the two-part solution that creates a non-silver alternative photography technique. And it's very, very simple to do. And I love to do it mostly in the summer because it requires the sunlight. So those are the chemicals that you would use. And this particular process, you can just let me know if you are looking at a page that says cyanotype process.
Yes,
Yes.
we are.
Okay, so I can put this in the chat to you. And this is a really good resource for learning about the history of cyanotype and Anna Atkins and Herschel, but also different kinds of ways to manipulate. So this is, I'm not going to go through this, but you now have it in the chat so you can look at this, and it tells you about the history of this process. Then normally what you're doing is you are, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to send you this, and you should be able to access this as well. And this will lead you to the various things that I'm showing you, but I'm not going to have a chance to talk about it all. So I
Aren't
think
you being generous with us? This is great resources you're hooking us up with.
well, it's also something that if you wanted to do with NEBA, you could set this up as a way to share everything. If
Yeah.
you wanted to, samples or resources, things like that. It's free for us at the college.
Well, we have a Google Drive that all members have access to that is basically equivalent to this.
Okay, so this is the same thing. So, but I think if you save this link beyond now, that if you wanted to watch this is a beautiful tutorial that I found. It's not my tutorial, but it's somebody else's. And let me see if I can bring this up quickly. So yeah, so you should be looking at a little white arrow. Yeah, okay, so this is just a tiny little thing. This is my daughter, and I'll explain what she's doing. We're outside, it was sunny, and she is developing a cyanotype that is sprinkled with lots of turmeric, but also it began as this, which is a Gayutaku printing a tuna tail. So, but we wanted to also do a cyanotype from it. So it was my daughter's idea. The idea was to take the Gayutaku print and put that on to the wet cyanotype. So we sealed it completely so we wouldn't ruin the print. And then it was put on top of the wet cyanotype.
So you're using your Gayutaku print of the tail on fairly thin paper as a negative.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes, you said that better. You said that better than I could. Thank
No,
you.
I'm just trying to make sure I understood, because this is
Yep.
a really off script way of playing. I love it. This is awesome.
Okay, so yesterday I prepared a lot of, I'm working with seaweed, and I'm so inspired by the two presenters, because I really could see these as flag books. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my goodness, that's what I'm going to do, a flag book. So I think, or the idea of doing these as tunnel books. So I'm showing you things that are not books yet, but I put these outside, as I said this morning. I made them last night before evening, so there was no sun. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll just try a bunch of different things. So one of the things I did was I took one of them and I exposed them to for 20 minutes in with my light box. So I have a light box that I use for creating solar etchings. And I thought, well, this is a lot of time, but I'm going to try that because there was no sun. So I'm going to develop that right in front of you in real time. But before I go to that, this is just a simple painting with the cyan on top of a wet surface. So there's a lot of happenstance. And that's what I absolutely love about doing this process. I can sort of control it, but then I can't control it. And that's, to me, this sort of synchronous idea of the what if. But also it is like, I guess what Penny was showing about the oceans is these, flowing seaweed in this sort of wonderful watery world. So that is what I'm getting from the wet cyanotype, which is different than applying it, drying it with a hair dryer, and then developing it. So these are the ones that I have in back of me. And in real time, we're going to see what they look like. So when they are not exposed completely, or initially, they'll look yellow, they'll look light green. And then I also was experimenting with the idea of using wonderful transparent ink, because I was sort of perhaps getting fatigued with just the blue. So what I did with these is, before I put the cyan mixture on, I painted these seaweed-like forms with ink. And then this one down here, if you can see my pointer, the other day I was walking on the beach and there were all of these little tiny seaweed berries. So this is along the rack line, this wonderful pattern that that I was seeing. And then what you're looking at is the cyan with a splash here and there of alcohol, and shaking some turmeric on top of it as well. So
Before you go forward, I just have a couple of questions about that.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that your inks have to be permanent inks instead of water soluble, because when you rinse to develop your cyanotide, it would go away, right?
Right, exactly. So these are my recommendations here. I thought I had a picture of that. So let me just stop my share, come back to me. So these are the Liquitex acrylic. Hold that the right way. Nope, there we go.
So they're
Liquitex,
acrylic inks.
right? And
Okay.
then the Daler and Roni also makes the same thing. So they're acrylic inks. And when I wash them, they don't disappear. So that, okay, so let's move my chair out of the way. And all right, so behind me, I have this one. Okay, so this has the cyan, seaweed, turmeric, and this one does not have the ink. And this one, well, maybe I'll do this one. So this one has,
Yeah.
and you can see that the ink is there, right?
Okay.
So I'm sure you guys know how to do this, but you make a sandwich.
No, I don't know how.
Okay, okay, all right. So what you're looking at is just a contact printer, and I could put anything here. I could put a transparency, for instance, and my transparency would then create a negative. So wherever you see the black of the toner, that is not going to be developed by ultraviolet light. And so wherever you see the seaweed, in this case, that has been blocking the ultraviolet light from hitting the chemicals.
So it's a subtractive
So it
printing technique.
creates a negative.
Yeah.
It creates a negative. If you want to create a positive, then you have to create a negative.
I get that. Yeah.
Okay, so these are acetate sheets that I created a negative in Photoshop. All right, so let me leave that aside. And then in real time here, we'll see what happens. So, and you can ask me questions. There's the seaweed. And so I have several of these to develop, but I'm going to start with this one.
So cyanotypes are printing out paper, which means that you just rinse them with water to, quote, develop them, which is fantastic. So you don't have to have a whole bunch of chemicals.
The only thing you need is peroxide.
Yep.
So I'm taking off the seaweed. And here's the sort of strange thing about this. I always like them at this stage because they're brown, they're blue, they have a lot of dimension to them. And so but it's going to change. And you really can't, I don't know if anybody has ever figured out a way to just leave them at this stage, but I suppose if you sealed it with a spray, Maybe you could. I'm not
I don't
really
think
sure.
so. I think it'll continue
It'll
to
always
change.
continue to change.
You should
Okay.
photograph it.
Yeah, well, I
Take a
do.
photograph of it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only way to save it.
So I always have this problem when I'm showing something to my students because my computer is 2 feet away from me. So you'll bear with me if it's not that close. So all I'm doing right now is just washing. I'm going to tip this down so you can see it.
We can see it.
We can
You're
see
good.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And then, you know, they say this is fairly non-toxic. However, it's not a bad idea to wear gloves or to use tongs. So at this stage, you can see there's a lot going on there. And that's my first rinse. And then I'm going to take it over here. And this time I'm going to, actually, why don't I do this? I'm just going to pour the peroxide right in here. So when I pour the peroxide in, then it's going to deepen the color. And actually, because I did all kinds of crazy things today, I think that that brown is going to stay. Well, we'll see.
What if you didn't pour the peroxide in? Could you keep it not deep?
They just kind of look too faded.
Do they?
But
Over time,
So
it will
that's-
oxidize on its own and get deep.
Okay,
The hydrogen peroxide accelerates it and makes it happen faster.
I see.
so I'm going to do one more
Okay.
so you can see that. So I'm going to take this one.
Can
and
you
this
hold
one-
that one up though?
I'm
Before
sorry.
you, before you do that, can you hold that, the other one up?
Mhm.
We didn't see it.
Okay, sorry. Let me just get something so I don't trip all over the place. So that didn't change that much. Usually it gets a little bit bluer, but it might with a little bit more exposure, as you say, the oxidizing in the sun. But there's a lot of depth to that with the wet cyanotype that you don't get when you do a dry cyanotype. So I'm
Now,
really
does that,
in love with how that works.
Is the yellow
does
in
that,
that? Go
does
ahead,
that
I'm
have
sorry.
turmeric?
The
Yeah, I was
yellow
gonna ask.
is the yellow is the turmeric,
Okay, great.
Okay.
and then the brown is the ink.
That was my question too, Penny.
Yes.
Okay, great. We got it answered.
Okay, I'm gonna do one more because I'm just dying to see what it's gonna look like. Let's see if I can get to this. But you can ask me questions. For instance, this is going to become the rack line of those little. So this is all painted and ready to go. So the next step would be to put cyanotype on this, and then salt, which I have done with this one, has a lot of salt in it.
Ooh.
So you can see how that, the salt absorbs the cyan and creates more.
Can
a
you
lot of
hold that up? Yeah, can you hold that up towards the camera? Oh, wow.
Can you speak again, Sarah?
So
There we go.
this has alcohol, it has salt, different kinds of salt, Malden salt, kosher salt. Oh, and then it has one more thing, is I take stencils. If you can see, there's some fish, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay, there they are. Yeah.
So those are stencils that I put onto this. And the whole thing was put on, again, wet. However, this was in 2 pieces because I don't have a piece of glass that big, and then it's seamed in the back. So, and the joy of this to me is that it feels like I love things I can't control. I guess I said that already. and then you try to do it again, and then it comes out differently. So there's sort of magic to that. And so that to me is sort of a metaphor for life, is the things that you can't control and things you can control. This particular one just, it was magical. And then when I try to do it again, different, but not the same. Okay.
So Sarah,
so-
Sarah, before you leave that piece, tell us again, it's got
alcohol, rubbing alcohol, splatters of kosher salt, Malden salt, seaweed,
see,
and then the fish shapes are stencils.
it's really interesting, all that depth that you've been able to achieve with the wet cyanotype. I can't believe how different the results are from the regular cyanotype technique.
Right, I was taunting you about this all summer, and we were going to get together, and it just never happened. But that is what I was playing with, and it was just so much fun. It was like scuba diving, actually. You know, that sense of what are you going to see? What are you going to see? So, all right, I'll just do one more, and you can see this has the turmeric. And it has the seaweed, and it also has ink. So it's kind of messy. I'm going to just pull this away from my computer. And I'm going to put it in water first.
Are those glass plates? Or are they plexi?
Is it glass or plexiglass? Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay. I find that there is a difference, and that the glass works faster and better. Plexiglass will not let all of the ultraviolet light in. However, when I'm working with my students, rather than breaking all of these contact printers, I do use plexiglass, and maybe it just takes a little bit longer for the ultraviolet light. But the key thing is the contact. And so if it's glass or plexiglass, it's that solid contact that you want to make.
Does the plexiglass break down over time with the chemicals and
No,
the
no.
salt and the scratches?
The scratches would appear in your print. So obviously the glass is going to be more resilient and easier to clean, and you'll have a clearer.
Yes, it
A
stays
clear
clearer.
Although, I mean, because we're not talking about making a photograph, although you consider that a photograph, that if a glass had scratch in it, it would really not be visible to your eye, I don't think, unless it was a really big gouge. Okay, so this messy concoction of turmeric. And if anybody has other things that they use, please let me know. But I'm going to shake that into here. The seaweed and the turmeric are going before I put it into the water. And so I'll show you what it looks like before I put in the water. So every place there was seaweed, it blocked the ultraviolet light from hitting the cyanotype fluid. And the turmeric is still on the surface. Some of that's going to wash away. And then there's some ink here on that sort of rack line. And I'm going to put it in the water. And so what this does, and this may be too deep to see. Yeah. So what this
If you
does.
step back a little bit, we can see it easier, actually.
It's too deep. So that's washing off a lot of the chemicals. And this one was actually developed inside the, underneath my light box, which I use, as I said, for solar etchings. So you want to agitate this. You could probably take a a sponge or a brush and lightly brush that off because there's quite a bit of the cyan. It really baked in with the light box.
Yeah, it looks like it's a lot deeper than the others.
All right, so yeah, this had 20 minutes of exposure. And so it's going to be much darker. And then I'll put it in here and it just completely changed. Very, very dark. Looks like a starry night. This is going to need a lot more washing, but I'm just going to hold this up here. And I probably left out one step is after you do this, it has to go into clear water. I want to bring this closer, but I also don't want to drip all over the place. So 1 second, I'll find a way to do this. So this is going to need a lot more washing. I'll hold it up here so you can see it. And it's super, super dark. So maybe it did not need 20 minutes, but I will keep washing this a little bit. And there are techniques for making it lighter by actually bleaching it out. If you wanted to do that, but
it does an interesting effect when you do the bleaching because it doesn't usually go evenly, and so you can get some modeling that's kind of fascinating.
and
I thought the darkness is a really nice differentiation in that it's another color. And the cyanotype, that indigo is so immediately recognizable that to see a different color can sometimes bring a little mystery into what the medium is.
right, and sometimes you probably have seen the ones that look like an eggplant color, and using tea to soak the paper gives kind of an eggplant color to it. So again, this is ready to go. This has been exposed this morning in the rain. Well, it also lets you realize, and this is the plexiglass. So this is going to probably be a little bit lighter, but it also makes you realize how you can get a suntan on a cloudy day, because this was out there in the rain in the cloudy day that we have this morning, and it looks like it is it's going to be pretty rich and pretty dark. So I'll just close off with this one. If you have hostas in your yard, this is the time to harvest your hostas and press them. And right now, because the hostas are kind of like thin and they're yellow, if you press them, they make really, really gorgeous cyanotypes because the chlorophyll is gone, and so the ultraviolet light goes right through those leaves.
That's lovely.
So
Nice.
all right, well, that's about it for wet cyanotype. You do have all those links, so hopefully you can, for $23, put that on your Christmas list.
Fantastic.
I have to say,
Another.
I'm so impressed by everybody's presentations today. And I mean, we couldn't have hoped for a greater variety of approaches in today's talk, which made me particularly happy for people like Jane Lowy, who are the first one, this is their first time, they can see the enormous range of talent that our group has. Thank you all, the presenters, so much. And I immediately want to call for a wet cyanotype workshop this summer on
I
campus.
second it. I second that motion.
Absolutely. I'm in.
All right,
I'm
you got
there.
it. All right, you got it. We'll do a wet cyanotype. But by that time, I'm going to be on to something else. You know me, Marie.
I do know you, but
Oh my goodness.
that's great, Sarah. We would love that. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, I just want to make sure, Sarah, you're not showing us any of your books at this point. You did this fabulous demo for us.
She
Well,
showed us Wanderlust, and she showed us
Yes.
the folded cyanotype
Yes.
accordions. Yeah.
Good, good.
I guess what I'm going
I
to
just-
say is,
I just don't want it ever to stop, I guess.
no, everything I do, I'm not as complex a book artist as most of you are. So I love forms like the accordion book, where I can take my prints and I can attach them. But I also love all of the things that you were showing with the flag book, or the, I mean, there are just so many crossovers between things that people are doing. The idea of creating a tunnel book with seaweed and fish, and so yeah, most of the I have a lot of books to finish.
Yeah, you do now.
Yeah.
I'm like you, Sarah. I'm not about, I haven't done the complexity. I haven't done many of the structures at all, being the beginner accordion book start and blank journal person. But I love seeing that little fish one that you just held up, and it is as gorgeous as anything that we've seen today in its simplicity. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think Marie summed it up so beautifully that I don't have anything more to say. I don't want to say anything. Thank you, Marie, for your perfect summing up of today's show and tell. Maybe Christina, you can tell us who is up for next month.
That might take me a minute to find.
Oh, okay. I should have done that.
I
Actually,
don't have it easy to
I
get to, and people are shedding really crazy from this. We're losing people in droves from our meeting here because of how long it's gone. But I think it's we'll come back around to it.
I have it. Lorraine Harton, Gilardi, Nancy Valentine Ballard, and Susan Marsh will be next month. And we will see you after Thanksgiving on December 19.
Great holiday, everyone.
Happy
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Thank
Thanksgiving.
you.
Eat a ton
Thank
of
you.
food.